in the future might be able to watch this. Yeah. Okay. So we are ready to go. Let's start with a review. Who remembers anything about our last session? Just anything. Who would like to come off mute or go into the chat box and share anything they remember from our last session? I know some of you are new. We don't always have the same people for each session, but give it a try. If someone was here last time, what's one thing that you remember?
Hello, I remember us briefly touching on prioritizing and goal setting.
Yes, yes. Is that Miss Carter?
Yes, that was
Yeah.
me.
Yes, wonderful. Goal setting and prioritizing. And that was what we call a part of the private victory. And as effective people, we want to make sure that we prioritize, right? Because we have a limited amount of time in our lives and in our day. Okay, people. So get ready, get excited because we are about to go into, thank you for that, Miss Carter, habit 4. I see something in the chat there, Brittany. What do we have?
Yes. So we have Crystal Hinton saying make time for yourself, and Miss Brown saying use her calendar to organize her day.
Oh, absolutely. And put your top priorities in your calendar, including yourself. So that was kind of novel to think, oh my goodness, should I really put myself in my calendar? And the answer is yes. All right. So now we're going, when we talk about the 7 habits of highly effective people, and for those of you who are new, these are the habits that came from the work of Dr. Stephen Covey. And we're going from what we call the private victory, work within ourselves, into this. Are you ready? This is perfect for the holiday season. How do we work with other people? Because other people aren't always easy. Am I right? Okay, there's one rule tonight. We will stay loyal to the absent. We might share some concerns about people in our lives, but let's make sure we don't use their names, or we can use fictitious names. So yeah, I have some things to say too. Sometimes the most difficult people in our lives are the people who we're related to. Anybody out there relate to that? All right, Brittany, can you see my screen? Are you able to see my slide?
Yes, I can. Carmen said she can't hear. Is anyone else having a hard time hearing?
Okay, how about that? I turned up my volume as high as it could go. Does that help at all, Carmen? How's that? Better?
Okay, she hasn't said anything else, so maybe she's coming on now.
Okay.
Miss Brown said it's working on her end. So
oh, perfect. Okay,
maybe an
good.
audio thing for Carmen.
Yes, I'm sorry, my volume was kind of low, friends. So here we go. Okay, we're jumping into 7 habits. So this is exciting. Again, we're on habit 4, and we've talked about our mission, talked about our mission statement, talked about organization, we've talked about prioritizing. Now, again, there's a recap here. We're going into what we call the public victory. And the first habit of the public victory, which is also habit 4, is called think win-win. So let's kind of think about that for a minute. Can we really win?
John, how do I check the connection of my speaker?
We can hear you. Are you not able to hear us? I'm not sure.
How's that? Are we good? Okay, I'm going to keep rolling. And then those of you who are having some challenges with technology, just put it right in the chat box and Brittany can help you. Okay. All right, we're going to keep going with habit 4, thinking win-win. So here's what this habit says, and this is not easy. It says that we can win even when we don't win. So here's a quick, easy, simple example. I'm playing tennis, pretend, believe me, we'd be pretending, and I lose the game. Could there still be a win for me in that loss? What do you think? Could there be something that I win even when I lose the game? Love to hear somebody jump in and talk with us about that. What am I wins be?
You can learn strategies of how to make yourself better.
Yes. Strategies. We can learn from our mistakes. I could actually win from effort. Maybe I gave it my all, right? But a person was just better, a better athlete, more strategic. I could win something about perseverance, and I could win probably some things about teamwork and what we call in the 7 habits, abundance mentality. And that's being mature enough to let other people win without believing that it takes away from you. So this is a crazy thing. Even as adults, we get jealous. We think, oh, that's middle school, that's high school drama with girls or whatever, right? Or boys too. The truth is, as adults, if we're really reflective about ourselves and our lives, we can get jealous and have what we call scarcity mentality, where sometimes someone else will succeed and we're not that happy about it because it wasn't us. Now, this is going to take some real reflection on our part. And I've had to do this while I teach this content. Do I really do this? And the answer is yes. I'm cognizant of it. So it's kind of a bias that I'm conscious of, right? That sometimes when people are successful or get accolades and I don't, I can feel myself starting to feel like, oh, but what about me? Or did they take credit, but I helped? Where's my name? And I think if we're truthful, we could all say that that happens to us. And that's, again, scarcity mentality. Any thoughts from any of you tonight on that? All right. Anything in the chat, Brittany? Oh, you're on mute. So I'm assuming nothing's there.
Crystal Hinton said you could learn new skills. That was
Yeah.
earlier when you posed that question.
Yeah, good. So true. So let's keep rolling. Okay. Let's keep going with our slideshow and see what Dr. Covey has to say about this habit. Here are the 7 habits. And again, I encourage you, if you'd like to take pictures of the screen at any time through this session. All right. And when we look at this and what we call the maturity continuum, what this is saying to us parents is that we have to be sufficiently dependent, independent, and mature to actually think abundantly, to be happy for other people who win, to not have to get credit for everything that we do. And our kids are watching us. And that's the coolest part about this. We are modeling maturity when we can be happy for other people. All right, let's keep going. Whoops. All right. I don't know where I lost you, but I think I was on mute there for a minute. And I wanted to remind you that this habit is an attitude. Not all habits are attitudes, but this one is about what we really believe. Do we believe that when somebody else wins, we're still okay? That we still have gifts and talents? That they're not taking anything away from us? When we get into habits 5, 6, and 7, we'll be talking about skills. We'll be talking about results. And then if you look at the bottom here, you'll see that all of these habits are based on the roots, the very deep roots of character. And that's what our kiddos are watching. When we model every day, and we do, good, bad, or ugly, our kids are watching every move we make. Whew. So here are the principles of effectiveness of habit 4. Mutual benefit, believing that even when I lose, I can win. Or here's another thing to think about with win-win, that if you have an idea and I have an idea, we could put our ideas together and we could both win. We could both benefit. That's mutual benefit. It doesn't have to be my way. It doesn't have to be your way. It can be our way together. That's kind of a lost art in the world today. That's synergy. And we'll get into that more in a little bit, in a couple of weeks. We also talk about fairness and that idea of what's fair. Is fair equal? Is fair always equal? As a parent, I wonder about that sometimes. I'd love to hear your input because this is my opinion, and I'd love to hear yours. This is not what Dr. Covey says. This is Betsy's opinion. That as a parent, I want to give my kids what they need. And it might not always seem fair. It might not really seem equal, but it's what they need. So, if I have an older adult who's struggling in an area and I give them, I don't know, say money, for example, or time or effort or free babysitting here with BB, and I don't give that same amount to another child because they don't need it. Is that fair? I think it is. Is it equal? Maybe not. What are your thoughts, parents, on fairness and inequality as a parent? Anybody? Okay, jump in at any time. Want to hear your voices. You're welcome to share. Just jump right in. We also talk about that abundance mentality. Are we mature enough to be happy for other people when they win and when we don't? So Here is the common paradigm of habit 4, think win-win. Take a look at this. This is how we commonly think as people, as human beings, that there's only so much, okay? The more you get, there's less for me, all right? So don't be taking too much, because then I might not get my fair share, right? But then Dr. Covey says, wait a second, there's another way. There's a highly effective paradigm that says this. There's plenty out there for everyone and more to spare. Now I want to stop here. I'm going to talk to you as a teacher for a minute. And there are some teachers here with us tonight. And if you're a teacher, and even as a parent, you'll probably notice this, that sometimes when children or students don't physically have their needs met, for example, as a principal and as a teacher, there were kids that sometimes didn't even have food on the weekends. When children are in that state of mind, they can't understand win-win, because in reality, there isn't enough to go around. There was a little boy, I'll tell you a quick story as a principal. There's this little sweet little boy, and he was in kindergarten, and he would go through the lunch line and he would grab those muffins, the kind you get in the cellophane, and he'd grab those and he would stick them in his pockets. And the lunch ladies would get so mad, and they would call him the snatch and grabber. And they get so mad and they march him up to my office and say, Miss Wera, he's snatching and grabbing again. I talked to him, he was the sweetest thing. And here's what I found out, because I took the time. He didn't have food at home. So once we realized that as school officials and leaders, we made sure that he did. We contacted the right resources for the family. We made sure he had weekend groceries. I made sure he had free lunch and breakfast. But because I took the time to listen to him, right, we were able to really understand what his challenges were. But he, in his lack of abundance, could not think win-win, because he literally didn't have enough at home. So this is not an easy habit. That's what I wanted to say. This isn't easy from an emotional standpoint, as people who can sometimes get jealous. And sometimes it's not an easy habit from a physical standpoint. Whew. So these habits get tougher and tougher. And take a look at this. Here are the common practices. We compare, we compete, we compare our lives to other people. You ever do that? I watch all those housing shows, the HGTV shows, Joanna Gaines and all those folks, right? And I got to tell you, I'm a little jealous, right? I still have the Christmas tree I had 10 years ago, and Joanna's got, 20 new ones. So we do this because we're human. Sometimes we're insensitive to the needs of other people. We get demanding. Sometimes we only consider our own needs. And sometimes we're in this mentality of either win or lose, because that's the way the world works. And so having this different practice, this highly effective attitude, is really foreign to some of us, right? I know it was for me. Can we really have an abundance mentality? Can we balance courage and consideration? Can we be happy for other people and considerate when they win and we don't? Whew. And can we create win-win agreements, especially with our kids? Brittany, I see your hand is up. Come off mute and tell us what you got.
Crystal has shared that the housing does definitely get to her.
Yes. Need to stop watching those, Crystal. I mean, I love it, but gosh, I want to move. Thank you for sharing that. Oh, all right. So we're going to talk a little bit about agreements after the first video, but I really want to jump into this video on win-win thinking. If you want to take some notes, you can. It's really, really good. I'm going to share my screen and make sure my audio is on. And we're going to watch this video, and then we'll just talk a little bit more afterwards, okay? All right. And Brittany, just give me a thumbs up if you can see and hear my video, okay? Here we go.
Now, much of the world is win-lose. Competitive athletics, competition in the marketplace. You think competitively. So it has its proper place. But if you're dealing with interdependency, if you're dealing with teamwork, if you're dealing with where you need to be cooperative, you've got to think win-win. Most people see life like a piece of pie. There's only so much. So that if you get a hunk of it that's bigger, that means I have less. If you get more profit, I have less. If you get the recognition, I don't get it. See, that's called the concept of scarcity. Abundance is where you see the pie getting larger and larger and larger. When you get the win-win spirit, the win-win attitude, and learn the skills of win-win, which are associated with habits 4, 5, and 6, what happens is you start to discover pragmatically for yourself, the pie does get larger. Most people grow up with a comparison-based identity because they were compared in their own childhood, then in school, then in athletics, in almost every dimension of life. We live with comparisons, and we learn the values of those. Those are scripts. That's actually scripting. The ability to re-script yourself is a unique capacity animals do not possess. And any person at any time in their life, regardless of how deep those scripts are, it's tough. It's not easy. It takes patience, persistence, and courage, but they can reinvent themselves. You want to come up and help me a minute? I, Ron, have never lost an arm wrestle. And I don't intend to now. You're either going to be down there or I'm going to be down there. If he puts me down here, he gets the dime, okay? And if I put you down here, that means you give me the dime. Fair enough? You tell us when to start, give us 15 seconds, all right? Now, if he happens to put me down twice, he gets 2 dimes. So keep track of how many times he puts me down or I put him down. Okay, give each other the intimidating stare. It's faster if we both win.
Yes, I see.
The essence of win-win from an emotional standpoint is that you are sufficiently independent emotionally that you can be both kind and courageous at the same time. That's the essence of maturity. You can be kind, but if you lack courage, you're going to go for lose-win. You'll capitulate, you'll give in. You'll be permissive and soft. People will exploit you, run all over you, take advantage of you. Or let's say that you're full of yourself, how right you are, you're courageous, you're firm, you're strong, but you lack any empathy, any consideration, any kindness for others. So you push for win-lose. I had this guy come to me and he said, Stephen, I really tried to practice what you were teaching. And I'm telling you, they took me to the cleaners. It just did not work. I said, well, why did you go for lose-win? He said, I didn't. I went for win-win. I thought you said they took you to the cleaners. Yeah, they did. In other words, you lost and they won. What's that called? He thought for a moment, and all of a sudden, like lights came on. Lose-win, I guess. Exactly. So you have to really pay a greater price to learn this attitude and this skill.
Ooh, attitude and skill. Wow. All right, want to hear from you. Let's get some comments in the chat box. Would someone like to come off mute? What did you take away from that video? Don't be shy, parents. I know you're not. Anything in the chat, Miss Brittany?
Nothing yet, but I, learned that just because you're losing doesn't mean you're not winning. Same time.
It's a tough one. That's tough to get your head around, isn't it? And it's tough for us to teach our kids. And here's the hard thing. I'm just telling you from my parent perspective. It's hard to see your kids not win. We love our kids so much. And obviously you do. You're here. You want to take your family to a higher level, and we want them to win, especially in a world that's so competitive. We want them to have a better life than we do. We want them to be successful. So how do we teach our kids how to be courageous and considerate at the same time, and to learn from their failures? So strategy number 1 for tonight, parents, are you ready? We talked about that family meeting on Sunday. I'm not gonna let that go, because that Sunday family meeting is huge. And so here's your topic for this week. Hey guys, let's talk about failure. Your family's going to look at you like you're crazy. What? We're going to talk about failure? Yes, let's talk about some of our greatest failures and what we learned. I encourage teachers when I work with teachers to talk about this all the time. Our kiddos need to see us fail and then see us get up, because that's resiliency, right? They need to watch what we've learned from failure and what they can learn so that they're not afraid of it anymore. And because we know as human beings, we're going to fail. I fail every day. Yeah, thank you, Ms. Carter. Yeah, you can relate. Anybody want to jump in on that? Any thoughts?
It's a hard thing to teach, but it is something, because every failure is a learning experience, and learn, how to do things right the second time, or even how to fail and not just completely give up when you do fail. So it is something definitely important that we can teach our kids and still learn as adults, because every now and then I still fall and have to say, my children are watching me, so it's not good for me to tell them to keep moving forward if I don't do the same thing.
Yes. And so we must possess that strength of character, right? That shows them that we can get up again, because we can, right? We can, and we have. And sometimes these failures are very painful. There are things you probably don't want to share with your children, and that's fine. But use those examples that will help them see that it's okay. That it's growth. We're going to fail forward. That's what my parents used to say, and it drove me nuts because I did not like to fail. So failing forward was kind of a little joke with the 5 of us kids, like, oh no, here goes dad again. He's going to tell us that we failed forward. And yet when I look back, we kind of did. You look back sometimes at the things your own parents said, and you're like, oh my goodness, they were right. M. Brown, you have your hand up. What do you have to say? Or maybe you're just waving. That's okay. It's good to see you. Again, jump in.
No, sorry. I was just, okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Oh, okay. I was just, I don't know if necessarily it's a failure, but as we're building, each week, with our students, we have on Fridays what's called like a round table discussion. And we talk about, what, anything that they feel that we can change, do better. And we get our insights from our students to help build our program. So I just feel, either as a parent or anyone that's working with kids, getting feedback from them, because it helps strengthens me for sure.
Yeah, so we have some great educators here on the line, M. Brown, and I love that. It reminds me of the strategy that we use in classrooms called the Plus Delta. And so this Plus Delta strategy, the feedback strategy, is something we can use in our parent meetings, our family meetings on Sundays, or whenever your family meetings are. Okay, mine were Sunday evenings because I wanted to get a sense of what's going on in the week ahead, who's going where, where's transportation coming from, who's going to eat what, right? So ours were Sunday night, but the Plus Delta, this is how it works. I'm so glad you brought this up, M. Brown. It works like this. It's really simple. You make a T chart, a T on a piece of paper. And on the left-hand side, you put a plus. And here's what I would do. Hey, everybody, what went well this week as a family? Well, Dad remembered to take out the garbage. That's awesome. Yeah, I know we've been married 35 years, but that's good. Okay. So yeah, there's some pluses. Hey, I remember to do my homework. Awesome. That's great. So what are the pluses? And we always start with celebrations. As teachers, we're trained to do that. Always start with celebrations. Then on the other side of the T chart, we would put a triangle. And a triangle doesn't mean, hey, what went wrong? What are our failures? It means, how can we grow? Or where can we make some changes? And so your kids start to think in different ways, like, oh, it's not just, hey, what was good and what was awful. It's what was good and what can we change? That's a little twist on the mindset. It's a little bit of a positive twist, showing our kids that they can become problem solvers. They can become solution oriented. It's not just, okay, you failed at this. You didn't brush your teeth for 2 days. No, here's a different way to say it. I want to take better care of my teeth. And I did not stay consistent. So this week, I'm going to shoot for 7 out of 7 days, at least once. And so you go into that solutions mindset through the Plus Delta. If you want to know more about it, feel free to Google that. It's a great tip. So thank you for that. Anybody else want to jump in? Okay, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to head back to the PowerPoint. Love that video. And there it is again. So make sure that doesn't happen. But I love this picture. If you're looking at the screen, take a look at that pie. And this pie reminds us that even though it looks like there's only enough for so many, when we get creative, there can be abundance even in a pie. So here's a quote. And Brittany, can I put you to work? Would you mind reading that quote for us?
Sure.
Thank you.
Win-win is a frame of mind and heart that constantly seeks mutual benefit in all human interactions. Win-win is based on the paradigm that
Yep,
there
yep.
is plenty for everybody, that one person's success is not achieved at the expense of others.
Yeah, that is so true, right? So I want to just tell you another fascinating fact, and I think we may have even talked about this before. We make a contract internally with people within the first 10 seconds of meeting them. Okay, stay with me. This is a little weird. When you think about this, within the first 10 seconds of meeting somebody, we decide if we're going to like them or not, if we're going to work well with them, if we might have a grudge against them. I'm talking 10 seconds. This is research-based. And if we're going to win with them, or are we going to compete with them? Now, that mindset or that bias that we bring to the table can change after we get to know people a little bit, right? Sometimes we make judgments of people. We are off base. I know I am sometimes, even though I feel like I'm pretty discerning. I can be wrong. All right. But this whole piece of first impressions and bias in making an impression of someone within 10 seconds is something we need to remember, because we do make contracts with people. I just think it's an interesting fact as we think about win-win. Let's take a look again at the highly effective practices of this habit. Okay, abundance mentality, being happy for other people's wins. And really, maybe it just takes practice. Sometimes I've said, oh, I'm so happy for you, and didn't really mean it, but just had to practice it until I felt it. And that's okay too. And we can teach our kids that too. Okay, you might not be happy that Billy Bob won that whatever game, but you're going to say that you're happy. And I promise you, it'll feel more natural, and we'll grow this abundance mentality because it doesn't take anything away from you, right? And again, even if you lost, we can learn from it. Balancing courage and consideration. So we're going to stop here. We're going to see another video in a minute, but I want you to just think about yourselves for a minute. And this is really a lot about reflection on ourselves as parents and as human beings. Are you more courageous with other people than you are considerate? Usually we veer one way or the other. Are you more considerate than courageous? Dr. Covey says the most effective people have this really beautiful balance, that they're able to say hard things. They're able to share the truth in their hearts and minds, their truth, without being aggressive or rude or disrespectful. And isn't that a lost art today? I think it is. I think this is where we as human beings, could you imagine if the whole world, all of a sudden, we became courageous and considerate at the same time, even on social media? Now that would change the world. Any thoughts? We've got some hands raised.
Oh, Betsy, Crystal Hinton had mentioned that she is more considerate and way less courageous.
Okay, so Crystal, let's stop for a minute before we go to the other comments. So Crystal, now you know what you need to work on, because you're probably a very lovely, nice, kind person, I'm assuming, because you're more considerate. But if you're too considerate, you didn't say that, but just pretend. If you're too considerate, then you can sometimes let people walk all over you, or you can say yes when you really want to say no. And here's another thing we need to work on, parents. We need to say no for a greater yes. And sometimes we say yes to other adults for things we don't even want to do or need to do, and that take us away from our family or our top priorities. Who else has a comment out there? Brittany, is there another hand up there? Or any other comments?
Crystal responded again with "I do, and it has caused me many problems."
Yeah. And I can relate. That's why I'm talking to you, because I'm older than you, Crystal. So take it from me, the people pleaser. It took me about 40 years. And typically I had the most angst with a family member because I was trying to turn cartwheels for her. And I got to this point where somebody else in the family said, Betsy, just live your life. Be considerate. Be courageous only when you have to, because you want to be a peacemaker, right? But stop trying to turn cartwheels for someone who doesn't care. Oftentimes that extra energy we put in doesn't even come out as an investment. Ooh, something to think about. All right, feel free to take a picture of this slide because this is a good one. And this would be great to have conversation with your kids about. All right, we'll leave that up for just a second more if you want to take a picture of that. Good conversation starters with your significant others or your kiddos, depending on their ages, right? Okay, let's keep going. Here's the definition of courage. Okay, now don't mistake courage for meanness. It can be, you can be too courageous and too aggressive so that you just are full of yourself, like Dr. Covey said, and then that doesn't help relationships. We're talking about building relationships here, right? But healthy courage is this: willingness and ability to speak your thoughts and feelings respectfully, right? And let's face it, we disagree on a lot of things. It's where we are. Can we do that respectfully? I like that definition. What about this definition of consideration? Again, healthy balance, not too considerate. We have to keep our boundaries to stay healthy, okay? Emotionally, spiritually, physically. So here's consideration: willingness and ability to seek and listen to others' thoughts and feelings with respect. And I had a student tell me once, so teachers are going to find this interesting out there. I had a student tell me once, a middle schooler, say, "Miss Weirda, why do you always just wait for your turn to talk?" Woo, talk about convicting. This is a student I had a great rapport with. He was one of my favorites. I know you're not supposed to have favorites, but as I look back at my 30 years of education, he just lit up my life. He was just a doll, just a delight. And he was very courageous. He said his truth respectfully. "Miss Weirda, why do you always just wait for your turn to talk?" And sometimes we do that, or we fake respect. I think it's time that we just open up our minds and listen. And it doesn't mean that it's going to force us to change our beliefs if we listen to someone else. And yet I think sometimes we get scared of that. If I really listen to someone, will it change me? Maybe, maybe not. Are you willing to take the risk? There's so much more to this habit. And let me tell you, when we go through these habits at a school level or even in corporations, this is a 3-day workshop. Can you see now why this is a 3-day workshop? Because we do a lot of personal work. We journal, and maybe you're doing some journaling right now. We take a lot of notes and we bring these things to life in our life. Okay. I'm not going to show you the Royal Ballet School. It's not one of my favorites. And it's something that, I'm not sure that you would love, because it really talks about only one part of this habit. And I want us to see all of it. So again, highly effective practices, all 4 of these, right? And here's the definition of a win-win agreement. We talked about making agreements with people. It can be formal or informal. And we can either subconsciously come up with expectations, or this can be literal. So let's talk about that for a minute. I don't know about you, but there are times when I've made literal contracts with my kids. Okay, if you do this, this, and this, maybe there's a calendar, a chore list. At the end of the week, you get $2, or you go to the dollar store, or you get to go bowling, or whatever it is, get on Minecraft, whatever that is. There are formal agreements, and there's nothing wrong with that. Brittany, what are you seeing out there?
I don't have any comments right now.
Okay, I saw your hand
Sorry,
up. So
Just
didn't want
kidding, just kidding with my hand.
okay, I didn't want to miss anything. So yeah, just let me know. All right. This is the video that I wanted you to see, and I think you're going to find it so compelling. So get ready to take some notes on this. And this is actually our last video before our wind up for tonight. This is a story about Dr. Covey and his son. And it's kind of a screenplay of that. It's not actually Dr. Covey in the video, but he does talk about what happened with his son. He wanted his son to do a chore. Okay, we can all relate to that. And what he was finding was that he was nagging his kids. Been there, nagging kids. I told you to clean your room, and then your voice gets higher, the voice gets louder. And I've even gotten to the place of threatening to take something away. If you don't get your room cleaned by Friday, you're not going to the movies. That's it. Bottom line. Anybody else? Is it just me? Man, I hope I'm not alone. Oh,
And
all right.
I'm the queen of nagging. If you don't get this done.
Well,
box.
yeah. And, here's why we do that, because typically it works. All right. Once we get to that level, our kids are so smart. They're like, oh, she means it now. Listen to because she didn't mean it the first couple times. And she's like, hey, clean your room. Okay. Okay. When we get to that level, they're like, whoa, she means it. And she's going to take away the movies. So we escalate until they take us seriously, and it works. And guess what? It usually doesn't take too much time to escalate. Once we get to that frustration point. Dr. Covey decided to do an experiment. He decided to empower his son with the tools and resources he needed. I see the hands. I'm going to get to you in a second. The tools and resources that he needed to fulfill this chore on his own. Woo, with a little help. You're going to see the patience of a saint here. So what other comments do we have out there?
Crystal said, my boys are only 3 years apart and argue all the time. I threaten to take away video games when they get too bad.
Yeah, absolutely. We all do. I mean, I don't know, maybe there's somebody on here who's never done that, but I would venture to say a lot of us do that. That's what we do, right? I did read a book, and if you're a reader or if you like Audible books, there's a book on discipline if you're having any discipline challenges that I really, really would recommend, and it's called Love and Logic. And the authors are Faye and Funk, and it's a really fabulous book. Gosh, parents, I have a copy in my library, and I love it because it does exactly what Dr. Covey's doing. Now, it takes patience. It puts the ownership of the problem in the hands of the kids. Now, here's when we work with teachers, there's a severe clause. If kids are hurting themselves or others, we need to step in immediately. But when kids are just, kind of bickering or maybe veering outside the lines, this Love and Logic piece can be really effective. And it could also be a book that you read with and talk about with your family. Okay. All right. Without further ado, I'm going to start this video. Take some notes. Brittany, you give me a thumbs up. This is called Green and Clean. Here we go.
My little son agreed in a family meeting to take care of the yard.
I will, Dad.
Son, your job is green and clean. Let me show you what green looks like, son. Let's go over to our neighbor's house. That's the color we're after, son. Clean means, let's clean up half of it. Now notice that compared to that. That's green and clean, son. Your job is green and clean. Now, son, how you do that is up to you. I tell you how I do it if you want.
How'd you do it, Dad?
I turn on the sprinklers. But you may want to use buckets or hose or spit all day long. All we care about is what, son?
Green and clean.
What's green look like? Good. What's clean? Good. It's your job, son. Guess who your boss is, son?
Who?
You boss yourself. Guess who your helper is?
Who?
I am. You boss me.
I do?
If I ever have any time you need help, you just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And guess who judges you, son? That's right, you judge yourself. How do you think you judge yourself, son?
Green and clean.
What's green now? What's clean now? Good. Is that a deal, son? You think about it for a day or two. Saturday. How do you feel, son?
I'll do it.
Do what?
Green and clean.
How?
It's up to me.
Who's your boss?
I boss myself.
Who judges you?
I judge myself.
How do you judge yourself?
Green and clean.
What's green? Good. Clean? Good. Who's your helper?
You are if you have time.
What if I don't have time?
I gotta do green and clean.
Is that a deal, son?
Deal.
Deal was made. You did nothing. Nothing all that Saturday. All that Sunday. Monday. It's Tuesday morning. Going to work. Hot. Summer day. Burning up. Yellowing. Neighbor's yard. Green and clean. Manicured. Garbage strewn right down the side lawn from a Saturday night barbecue. Falling out the bottom of the sack. 3 feet from my car. I could rationalize a little away Saturday and Sunday. But Monday, this is inexcusable. I was ready to move to win-lose. Now, son, you get out there, you get over here, or I'm telling, but the moment you do, you kill the goose. You kill effectiveness. You go for efficiency. Yeah, He'll clean that up. And what happens tomorrow when you're not there? Bite your tongue. Reaffirm your purpose. Raise boys, not grass. I'll see what it looks like tonight. Could hardly wait to get home. Driving, going around the corner, there where my yard was. Tuesday afternoon, more cluttered, more yellow than ever. My son across the street, playing ball. I was burning. We'd agree that we'd walk around the yard twice a week, and he'd show me how it's going. Hi, son. How you doing?
Just fine, Dad.
I was faking it totally. How's it going in the yard, son?
Just fine, Dad.
I bit my tongue. After dinner, why don't we walk around? You can show me how it's going. Before we got to the door, you could see his lip. By the time we got out to the front yard, just open bawling.
So hard.
I mean, what was hard? He hadn't done one single thing. I'll tell you what hard is moving up the level of initiative. You cannot hold people responsible for results if you supervise their methods. Anything you want me to do to help, son?
Would ya?
What was our agreement?
So you'd help me if you had time.
I've got time.
You do? I'll be right back.
Ran in the house, came out with 2 sacks. He handed me one, he took one. That's when he signed the win-win agreement. And he only asked for help a couple more times that entire summer. It's his job. It takes time to set up the agreement and to reaffirm it. The tendency is to backslide on it when you see mistakes. Keep believing in the people, holding them accountable in the way agreed.
Love that. That's from the 90s. You probably noticed, saw the hairstyle there, the 90s hairstyles. But I love that because he empowered his kiddo and stepped back and believed in him, and they made a physical contract. You do this, I'll help you here, and you agree to it. I'll support you, but this is your job. What are you thinking? Carmen, I see you nodding. Anything you want to add?
I wanted to say that people are like that, even on the job. If you work with them to help them complete the task, they will gladly add another extra 50 or 70% to get the job done. When I was watching the little boy, I was grinning and laughing because it took my mind back to when I first came to Florida as a federal examiner. I worked with 18 people. As long as I was working with those people to get the job done, we were completing tasks that were supposed to take 3 months. We were completing them in about 2 or less.
Yes.
And I really liked the fact that they made an agreement with each other. And the little boy made sure he stuck to his agreement.
He did over time. You know, he was kicking his screaming a little
Yeah.
bit there, but it did work out. And here's, Carmen, what you just said says a lot about your leadership, because I don't know about you, but I'll run into people who say, I work for this person, or I work for this person, and that's fine. But when you hear somebody say, I work with this person, that tells you a lot about their leadership. You know, I always thought of myself as a principal, as just a teacher, not just a teacher. Oh my goodness. But as a teacher, as part of the team, right, to support my teachers who were in the trenches and working so hard. So I love how you put that. Working with people is true leadership, right? Yeah, I wish I'd thought about this when my son was younger and cleaning his room. You know, I'd send him in, clean your room. What I should have done, right, was to go in with him. These are the 5 things. And I know that he knew, but there's something about here, I'm with you, I'm directing it, direct teach. Here are the 5 things I need you to do. Then when you're done, you have until 11 or whatever, I'll come in and do these 2 things. Then we'll high five and we'll be done and you can go ride your bike or whatever. So I think working with the people and with our children is a key message today.
I do that with our volunteers at the school. They may have a task to do, but as long as I'm sitting there and I'm helping them, they'll kind of like take over and tell me to get out of the way and go do what I'm supposed to do. And they just take it and run with it. They
Yeah.
only let you help them for a little while. And I kind of thought, this really works. Let me keep this up. And it works with every time it works.
Yes, it does,
'Cause
Carmen.
I
And
think that's what they want to see. You working
yes,
with them.
and if it works in the workplace with us big people, think how much more effective it'll even be with our kids. Hey guys, let's clean the garage. We're gonna do this together. Do we want to do it together? No, we want them, they're teenagers, they can do it. But there's this message that we send that says we're family, we're in this together, and I may gradually release. And really, people do want autonomy. You're right, they really do, but they still want that support. Yeah.
Question.
Yes.
At what point in the process that it becomes punitive for the child if
Mhm.
it's not, if the agreement doesn't follow through? Is there a time frame?
Yes, thank you for that. I think that was Dr. Brim. I think that, yes, we heard you.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, what a great question. And I think we can go back to the Covey video that we just saw, because remember what he said, holding them accountable. So I believe, and I haven't talked to him personally, I've never met him personally, but I believe there was probably some kind of an agreement where there was a time frame, right? That if this garbage is not cleaned up by this time, or if we're not able to do it together by this time, there's going to be a consequence, right? It couldn't have gone on forever. His grass, oh my goodness, it could have been a mess. So I think as parents, we're pretty good about that. We can give our kiddos time frames, and we can talk about consequences with a love and logic piece. We talk with, like Carmen said, our kids about, okay, what is our deadline? How long should this take, really? And the kids are going to be tougher on themselves. We even in our schools, when we use love and logic, talk about what should your consequence be? If you throw your pencil again, what should it be? And so many times the kids will come up with an even greater or more severe, well, I should be suspended. No, you're not going to be suspended unless somebody gets hurt. But what can we do? What's the proactive thing we can do so it won't happen? And then if it does, what's our consequence? So yeah, there's absolutely a time limit, a time frame. And that's what we have to talk to our kids about. So there's not that surprise punishment. Like, okay, I've had it done. You're going to your room. And we do that in frustration, and that confuses our children. If we sit with them and make that contract, and there's clarity and communication, right? And we rally around this common vision, it's clear and compelling and well articulated, our kids will rise to that occasion because they're part of that contract. Their voice is in that contract, right? Okay, mom, by Saturday. Yeah, yep, we can do it. All right, what are our steps? What can I do to jump in? Right? So will it work every time? Probably not. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to give this a try even more intentionally with my grandchildren. I don't know about you. So I'm going to leave you with this today. Take this to heart. Take this contract idea. Take it home with you. I guess you're already home, most of you. Some of you might be in the office, but take it to your family meeting, right? When I say take it home, take it to your family meeting. What contracts do you need to make with each other? Maybe it's about chores. Maybe it's about how we treat each other. Somebody mentions some bickering, which is typical with kiddos, especially if they're close in age, right? So maybe that's the discussion. What contracts do we have to make? And then when do we check in again? And that's why that weekly cadence, we call it a cadence of accountability, is so important. Because if we just kind of throw it in the air, like, okay, be good, there's the contract, and we never come back to it, we're going to lose our effectiveness. All right, here's the contract. We all signed it. We're going to touch base, just like Dr. Covey did. I'm going to touch base with you on Wednesday and see where we are. And we become great coaches, not only great parents, but great coaches to our kids. Whew, I love this habit. It's not easy. Habit 4, win-win. It's not easy. Just as a recap, it's thinking abundantly. It's being happy for other people's wins. It's making win-win contracts with other people, right? Again, living in abundance. And it's seeing our failures even as learning opportunities. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot to take in this habit. And I hope you enjoyed it tonight. Do we have any final thoughts or anything that's resonating with you before we leave this evening? Any last thoughts? You could put it in the chat, or would anyone like to come off mute? What are you taking away? Somebody share. What are you taking away from tonight? Well, I know I'm taking this to my grandchildren. Okay, Carmen's saying thank you. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas. I wish you the same, and I encourage you to come back. Brittany, I believe our next session is the 9th. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so. I'll send
Yeah.
out an email to everybody at the recording of this session and also the link to the next session. In the chat box, I did place a link. If you'd like the free Franklin Covey workshop guide, book, and calendar, you just leave your information and we'll send it to your children's school. So please do that. And thank you everyone for attending tonight.
Yeah. And just, I wanted to say just really quickly, our next Habit 5, please be here. I have some guests coming. And if you have teenagers, you're going to want to be in attendance. Tell your friends. We are going to talk about teenagers and communicating with them. So Habit 5 is about communication. Don't miss it. I wish all of you a very Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays. Thank you for your warm hearts and for loving your kids. You're rock stars. So take care, be well, stay safe, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night.
Bye, everybody.
All right, Betsy, if no one has any questions, I'm going to go ahead and end the Zoom.
Sounds good. Have a great
All
holiday,
right.
Brittany. Thank you for
You
everything.
too. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.